Welcome to the ASUG News Studio. My name is Tom Welg. I'm delighted to have Mike Eacrett in the hot seat here in the ASUG News Studio. You are Vice President of Product Management for HANA.
Yes.
And you have not been doing this for 5 years. That is
No. It feels like 5 years because of the agility, I guess the speed at which we deliver. We've probably done more than 5 years work in the last year and a half of releasing the product.
Really has been quite an amazing journey. So I thought we'd maybe start off by saying, let's set the record straight. What is SAP HANA today, as you define it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding what SAP HANA is. Really, it's a platform. A lot of people confuse it with just being a database. That's obviously at the core of HANA. It's an in-memory computing database, 100% RAM. It supports both columnar and row store. It supports both OLTP and OLAP. A lot of acronyms there, but basically we can support analytics and transactional within the same database. In addition, it's a platform for building applications. I mean, at our heart is we're an application company, so why we build something, why we do something is really about what we can build for customers, but also what our customers and partners can build themselves.
Right.
I think what it isn't is just another database layer. We really are looking at not just having the best engine at ingesting and consuming data and delivering value and the manner calculations or the deep granularity, but we're also looking at how we acquire data into HANA. So we've delivered real-time acquisition technologies, batch technologies. We delivered integrated modeling with these acquisition tools on how you actually would get data into HANA very, very fast and then deliver it through virtualized views. So this is really not materialized views, but actually at runtime instantiating the calculations on the deep granular data. And I think that's probably the difference is before versus prior technologies, which are very much about how do you get data there, but then you have to deal with constraints. So it's really about unleashing the constraints we had in the past.
You mentioned, early on the analytics, that was where we were first going.
Yes.
Now the transactional, that's gotten a lot of people's attention, I
Yes.
think, and later this year, I understand, we'll be seeing maybe the business suite. So that the analytics proved to be, great. You guys have great use cases for that, obvious. Will it be harder to make the HANA sell with the transactional because, people are so used to their transactional and, if I get it, well, it's just, transactional data, I can get it tomorrow. I mean, how will you guys sell that? Or?
Well, I think the transactional use case is twofold. One is we've talked a lot about analytical applications, and I think some people may confuse that with dashboarding, and a way of maybe just doing small actions on the data. But a true analytical application is both transactional, in that I can affect change, and I can process my transactions, but I have the analytics, whether it's the planning, whether it's simulation, whether it's predictive, all those calculations on the same data in the same source. And I think that's where you see analytical applications like Vishal will announce on Wednesday, but things like dynamic cache management, which we already released, as new types of applications. And then of course you mentioned the big one that everybody knows SAP for, which is ERP or part of the business suite.
Right.
And of course, powering that is something that's a huge goal for us, and Vishal announced in December that we plan to deliver it this year. Now, I think the combining of transactional with analytics within the same system is extremely compelling to anybody. It's not just how do I get a sales order screen from 2 seconds to 0.1 of a second. It's also what else can I do in that 0.1 of a second. Can I do analytics? Can I get better transaction mixes that I can offer my customers in a call center?
Right.
I think that's really the, how do you untap the rest of your data or other data sources into making better decisions. And again, why we do this is our customers can make better decisions, make more money, make more profits.
What is available today with the HANA logo on it? I think I saw a slide, I think it was last week. It was great. It showed what was available now, what's coming, and what's maybe a couple years long run. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So we have many use cases where it's very obvious what SAP HANA is part of, and then we have use cases that HANA, you would kind of say it's almost HANA inside, or the powered by SAP HANA moniker that we have. So obviously HANA as a standalone platform, as a general purpose database or as an analytics platform was obviously the first use case that you saw, is that people can build applications on there, can build their applications, they can put it next to their suite and get real-time replication and real-time operational reporting. Then we have SAP NetWeaver BW, powered by HANA, which was released last week from RampUp. So it's been running in RampUp, very strong RampUp. We have over 100 customers on it.
Over 100? Is that new news, or has that been announced?
Well, I think We already announced last week that we had this, and also we have a number of live customers, which Vishal will highlight in his keynote. I don't want to jump the gun on this, but we have a number of the customers also presenting here. That I think it's a very compelling use case for an enterprise data warehouse use case. Then we have it as a platform for its own standalone applications. Smart meter analytics was an example of a brand new application that's very different use case for SAP. High volume smart meter data coming in, you're mixing that with CRM data, mixing it with weather data, to really be able to understand what you can do with your customers, how you ensure delivering, in this case, power to your customers, whether residential or commercial. Then in addition, you have all the suites. So the suite being SAP NetWeaver, being the business suite, the by design. So SAP by design is actually powered by HANA. You probably not aware of that because you're just using it. We have, example, the BI on-demand platform. We have Business One powered by HANA. So many, many use cases where you see HANA directly, and sometimes you may not see it. So like a good engine, you're seeing the car, you're not seeing the engine itself. So I think this year, if last year was a technology year, this year is the year where you show what you can do with it.
What would be the hardest part of your job when you're out there evangelizing this? What's the most common question you get, or the roadblock that you guys see in terms of full adoption?
I would say one of the challenges is that there's a major change in what you can do with it. So a lot of the thinking that we've kind of conditioned ourselves to is, as Hasso would say, 20 years ago, client server. And I think if you want to say the IT guys are very beaten down into the operational use case, that I think turning them onto what they could do innovatively with HANA is something that they've wanted, but getting to believe in it, if you want to say, is because there's been lots of false promises in the past, but really how do you build something with a much simplified infrastructure, a simplified design, where you don't have many, many copies of data, where you're actually consolidating the different engines together. I think is probably something to say, these can really do it. And then showing them the use case, I think is probably, by showing our customers being successful, is probably the biggest way of getting over this hurdle.
You guys have also been out in front showing a roadmap in the HANA as a database, and recently we've seen a lot of talk with Oracle and things like that. Do you guys worry that that runs the risk of confusing customers? I don't know if customers, ASUG members, like the database back and forth wars between Oracle and SAP, and they are obviously the leader, and a lot of them are loyal to their Oracle databases. How are you guys going to approach that to make sure that this isn't like, hey, that's Oracle, we don't like them, but we're better than them? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, I think that it's twofold. One is it's about value. So what we deliver with it, or what customers can gain value from using HANA, it'll ultimately be the deciding factor in what's successful. I think the other aspect is, in the past, and if you look at history, the OS, the chipset that you actually deployed, if you look in the late 90s, whether you're on Solaris, whether you're on RISC architecture, your OS, your servers were major decision points that were key differentiators. That has changed with Linux, with x86, Intel chips, the commoditizing of it. I think the database is just the next natural part of it that actually becomes more commoditized, and it's less of a religion, but more of what am I actually consuming in the application of the technology, and that's more important on what is the value I'm getting from it. So I think HANA as a great engine, again, it's like the car analogy. The cars you deliver with that engine will ultimately decide the success of that engine, and I believe that we have the right applications. We also have the right ecosystem around it. The big hardware partners like Intel, the IBMs, the HPs of the world, fully backing behind us, in addition to the SIs, the ISV market, and of course our own SAP applications. And of course, we shouldn't say as a final, our own customer ingenuity with what they can do with it. And I think you see in the show floor here lots of examples of unused, unthought of cases that SAP didn't think about, but our customers are taking value of it.
I know you guys have also been pushing a lot lately of the openness, the ability to work with different partners. And yet, as I see, you guys talk more about a world that's SAP database, SAP applications, SAP analytics. Are you not locking down your customers in the way that you guys have claimed Oracle has locked down the customers? How do you guys, I know you see it differently, but how?
Well, I think we do see it differently, but I think from our perspective, if you look at the openness on how we've taken the appliance, and our hardware partners take with acquiring technology and the focus that we have, but I think also, yes, you could say that by saying the database is part of our applications and certain applications may only come in HANA is potentially run the risk of saying we're locking customers in, but we're not locking them in on the can't expand it, or SI, and I won't jump the gun on what Vishal will announce with our ISVs on Wednesday, but we're being very, very open. We're also supporting a very big developer community with the Experience SAP HANA site.
Sure.
So the idea for us, and you'll see a lot of announcements over this year about openness. We've had examples where we've had competitors to SAP on stage with us, and last December we had Tibco, we had Tableau, examples that are actually competitors to our core business, but also opening the market up for them with HANA.
Right.
So I don't think we gain so much by closing down.
You mentioned developers too, that's an interesting topic.
Yes.
Bringing them into the HANA fold. What's the status of that right now? And I mean, can you tell us about uptake or percentages of people doing it? Or?
Yeah, so again, I can't pre-announce what Vishal would say, unfortunately.
No.
yeah. If you get Vishal, I think you'll get more answers. But we have a lot of developers working on it. We have a lot of ISVs already working on it. We had the example, Medidata was one we showed at the last event where they built a whole solution on it. We have companies like MKI doing genomic research.
Oh, cool.
And again, this is an internal customer to themselves, but actually doing different types of things than you would never expect SAP to be genomic research and genomic algorithms. I think also you'll see with the hardware partners, you're going to see also with them, they have a subsystem of, example, Fujitsu has NetApp underneath for shared storage. We've had Fusion IO cards in the boxes. I think it's very vibrant from a technology, but also from the pure developer perspective. We're now seeing more and more ABAP focus, and we have a number of sessions here by Tom Young and my team who's actually talking about ABAP consumption of HANA. We've seen the COP accelerators, the operational data marts, where people are actually using ABAP and using their old skill set and updating it with how to take advantage of HANA with that real-time connectivity and the speed that we're getting on the system. And again, BW on HANA, BW is an open infrastructure. We actually have some third-party certifying content on top of BW, which is actually powered by HANA as well. So you're going to see a lot more ecosystem partnerships, but also you're going to see third-party tool providers also coming in the near future with HANA.
Great. Well, the last question for you is, what would you say to, and don't go too heavy on the sales pitch, to ASUG members who are watching this, who are interested, where should they just get started in checking this out? Where would you encourage them to do?
Well, the first thing I would say is use the ASUG network. I mean, we have a number of ASUG customers here that can share their knowledge and their experience of their trip to it. So we have like Southern Cal Edison here, we have Honeywell presenting what they've done. I think one thing is with ASUG, they're very good at sharing the pros and cons. I would say get educated on what HANA is, learn what other customers are doing, how they've had value, but also maybe some of the challenges they've faced and anticipate it. But I would say also attend all the ASUG sessions. There's many Q&A sessions here, and really understand what it is and understand where is the pent-up demand that a customer might see. Or there's always that nugget where you say, that would be great. And that's where IT can go from 0 to hero.
Right.
Very, very fast. So it sounds very cliched, but I think there's a lot of opportunities there, whether it's a BW conversion that's done very, very rapidly. We have some customers do that in 3 weeks or less. Or it's going live in 4 to 6 weeks with a COPA accelerator or operational reporting. Something that's very simple, but also is something to show really like example of the business objects BI clients directly on ERP data. Something like Explorer on ERP, which you never could even conceive before. Okay. I think there's easy steps like that, but I think there's many options, whether it's, example, just using BI on demand or business by design, just infinite amount. So I think it's really looking at what is best for their current pain points.
Great, well thank you very much for coming by, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Great. Check out asugnews.com for more interviews from ASUG Annual Conference, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes.